Bible itself is not the revelation, it is the transmission. So the first one, they put number one, is tradition. And they think that the Bible actually, which is good, and this article number 3 is sacred scripture. And then talk about the canon of scripture, etc. So you have to understand that the Bible, according to the church way of looking at it, it is our way of transmitting the revelation of God. But let me ask this also so that you understand. When we read the Bible, it is the revelation to us, right? I don't know the revelation until I read the Bible. When the church but the church does more than that in tradition. We know Jesus is born because we remember there's the song that says, Jesus loved me, that I know.
Yeah,
Because the Bible tells me so. Jesus is born, that I know. Because the church has Christmas liturgy.
I've always made that point.
We'll have to change it. We do that song in high school, so we'll have to change it.
Jesus is born because we have an Advent and we make a big deal. It's not like the story in the Bible. We actually are going to start today a whole season to prepare ourselves for the celebration of the Nativity. So that this is to us is like, that's tradition, right? I know Jesus is born, it's a big event. I know that he is crucified, that's a big event. Well, how do I know that Jesus was crucified? We have a whole Holy Week, right? How do we know that Jesus is risen? And again, because we have a feast and an event in the church that we celebrate as a family to commemorate the most important things in my life. But the Bible actually is part of it, because when you come on the Nativity, what do we do? At the top of our celebration, we open the Bible and we read the scripture that talks about. So you see, there is no, actually, we don't really have that disconnection, right? So, but the Bible to us is telling us in details in a very clear, uninterrupted and unbiased details of what we know in the church. So today we are going to go back to the chapter, the next one. So to summarize, we said that the Bible is a story of one. That's how I started with it. The Bible is a story of one family. It begins in Genesis, and that family ends in Revelation. Where does it begin? And where? In Eden. And it ends where? In heaven. That's basically it. So you have one book that starts the whole thing with a story of how the first humans came to be, and then it ends up by what happens to those humans at the end of times. Right? And between the two, it's a good drama. If you look at it, if you really think about the book as a story, it's a really, really rich drama. And last time, I don't know if you remember or not, I told you, you can actually divide the books of the Bible as drama or non-drama. Right? I said it in a different way. Narrative and non-narrative. Narrative. Can you follow the narrative? You can find them out. Let's see. Narrative, a smaller group for the Old Testament. Narrative. Genesis is narrative. Then after that, the story continues. Exodus. And then the story continues. And Numbers. Until they reach the promised land. That's Numbers. And then, so what about Leviticus and Deuteronomy? Non-narrative, because you read them as law. That's why I said last time, I want you to remember this. If somebody from your kids or anybody that asks you what should I read in the Bible, you should start with what? The narrative. You should not read. You can tell them that. My suggestion, you tell people, don't read Leviticus. Don't read Deuteronomy intentionally. Why? Because people usually reach that and then what?
Stop.
They stop. They say, I can't understand anything. Because they have not had the story yet. The story has to come first. Then, based on the story, you can actually explain the book of Deuteronomy and the book of Leviticus. You get it? So Genesis, Exodus, Numbers, then Joshua, because that's the fulfillment. Some people say Joshua is the 6 books of the Pentateuch, the Hexateuch, because it's actually where the fulfillment of the promise. There's a promised land. Where does it happen? The promised land happened where? Where did he get it? It's in Joshua. Joshua fulfills what God promised his people through Moses. After Joshua dies comes the judges. The story continues. Ruth. And the story continues in 1st and 2nd Samuel. And then we go to 1st and 2nd Kings. And then they get the exile. Then it continues in Ezra and Nehemiah. To with Esther and Judas, I would keep, actually, my thoughts is to actually keep them in the narrative. And then the 1st and 2nd Maccabees. This is the story. That's the drama of the Old Testament. By 2nd Maccabees, the drama of the Old Testament is coming to its end. We begin the New Testament. So what's the drama of the New Testament? How can you summarize the New Testament story? Most people would say, go Luke, just Luke, and then Acts, and you'll be done. So the whole story of the New Testament, because the New Testament is much more than that, we have much more teaching and much more problems to deal with than the Old Testament. So Luke and Acts, you're done with the story. So if you go from Genesis to the book of Acts, you cover the story from beginning to end. But the book of Acts actually leave you suspended. The only book that doesn't have a Amin at the end means that it's still going on. So where does the story continue? Huh? It's the story of the church. Today we are living that part, right? The continuation of the story, and there is an expectation of it to end the book of Revelation. That's an expectation. That's prophetic. Okay? So that's what we did last time. We talked about translations also. Let us go to the next chapter, which is going to be the beginning of our journey. Last time we were done with the translation about the four types of translation. We talked about form equivalent, natural equivalent, functional equivalent, and the paraphrasing. We said paraphrasing we don't approve of. It's a heresy, actually. We think of it as anathema. It should not be there. Paraphrasing is like the book of life, the book. It's bad. It's very bad. So we talked about that we used to have to be in a covenant with God. Can you find proof in Genesis 1 and 2? Let's talk about the first one. What is the place of the 5 books of Moses in Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, and the rest of the Bible? If you think about it, the rabbis know, and everybody else know too. The 5 books are the goal. If you think about it in the terms of holiness, they will be the Holy of Holies. They are the gold, because everything else is going to come out after that is going to refer back always to the 5 books, the Torah. Like the 4 Gospels in the New Testament. That's why when they come to read the Gospel, how do you read this is new things. How do you read the Pauline epistle? You sit down and listen. How do you read the Catholic? You sit down and listen. Acts, sit down, listen. It's exciting. What happens when you read the Gospels? And then we have to say a litany of the Gospel. We have to light candles. Again, let's get out of this childish idea that's all the same. No, it's not. The Torah has a very special place in the Old Testament. It's gold. It's Holy of Holies. And what about the prophets, like Isaiah, Jeremiah, or the historical books? They come to, listen, the Torah, and the Torah is the gold standard. It's the highest thing. The prophets are actually telling the people if they are doing not good. The Torah said not to do that, and the Torah said there will be punishments. So the prophets actually are coming to, based on the Torah, to tell the people if they are doing good or bad. And the consequence of that, whatever happened in the Torah is fulfilled in the prophets. When Moses said to them, you're not going to listen to the commandments that God gave you on the mountain, the 10 commandments in chapter 20 of Exodus or chapter 5 of Deuteronomy, you're going to be exiled. If you're going to be getting punished, and the highest and the last punishment will be that you get out of the land. For a reason, we're going to talk about it in Genesis. When they get out of the land, it's a fulfillment of the Torah. When they give them sermons, they speak from the Torah. And add to this even the Samaritan people who were exiled in 720 BC, 720 years before Christ. When they came back, some of them came back and they lived in the land. they hated the prophets. They don't want to have anything to do with the prophets, but they only kept the Torah. Samaritan Bible is only Torah, 5 books of Moses. There are Samaritans today. So they are actually narrative and non-narrative. We call them, in the Greek, we call them Pentateuch. Penta from 5, the 5 books. Some call them Hexateuch, they add to them Joshua, because Joshua, they think it's an extension, it's a fulfillment, it's the end of the story. Non-narrative, Leviticus and Deuteronomy. Narrative, Genesis, Exodus, Numbers. The author is Moses according to the church. Some new documents, and we don't want to go into this because you will have kids talk about it. They have, in Germany, he came up with something called the documentary theory. And you hear about it if you read any kind of criticism. It's one of the initial steps of biblical criticism that attack the Bible as a book that made up by different authors, and it's not Moses and all that stuff. Documentary theory said there are 4 writers. One of them uses Yahweh, they call it the Jehovites. Then one of them is using Elohim, they call him the J and the E. And then there is a priestly one, that is a P. And there's also a Deuteronomistic one, lawyers. So one J, E, P, and D. 4 authors. One is very concerned with the law, right and wrong. One is very concerned with rituals, that's the priestly one. One is very concerned with the name Jehovah, one is concerned with the name Elohim. And those 4 contributed to this. When you look at it, it seems like it makes sense in some way, but they're trying to see that, they say that there's differences in language, difference in style, difference in everything, but it didn't really help anybody. That theory didn't help in explaining anything in the Bible. We didn't get anything out of it. And more scholars now, even non-Christian scholars, are coming out of it. They don't really think this is the way it is. It might be much more complicated than that. Okay, the 5 books. Genesis is the book of beginnings, as the Greek name means. That's the Greek name. What is the Hebrew name? Barashit. Barashit. The Hebrew name means in the beginning. Something for you, that's a trivia point. The Hebrew people name their books by the first words in the book. What's the first word in the book of Genesis? In the beginning. So it's in Hebrew, Barashit. Barashit means in the beginning. So that's the name of the book. Exodus, the book of Israel formation and redemption. That's their identity formation. That's a narrative from the first chapter to chapter 24. What happens from 25 all the way to 40? What's in those chapters, last chapters? It's the... Huh? No commandments. Commandments chapter 20. So from 1 to 24 is a story. What about the rest of it? Is the making up of the tabernacle. Right? The tabernacle. That's the description of what is going to be done. So the narrative is all the way to 24. Leviticus, it's the handbook of the priest. It's non-narrative. It has 2 pieces. One piece is for the priest how to deal with the tabernacle and how to sanctify the people, to make them holy. By the way, that's one of the jobs of the priests of the New Testament too. To make the people holy, to sanctify them. And the main way we do this in the New Testament, in the Old Testament by a system of sacrifices and rituals. In the New Testament, we have the sacraments. Numbers, the book of the desert wandering, and it's called By Midbar. And By Midbar is a Hebrew word for in the wilderness. The book of Exodus is Shemot, means the names. Because the book starts with, and these are the names of the children of Jacob who came to Egypt. The book of Deuteronomy, number 5, is the book of the law. And it's non-narrative. Numbers also, part narrative, part non-narrative. The first 10 chapters, okay, we said the order of the books are Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. Exodus, the last 15 chapters are non-narrative for the tabernacle. For Leviticus, for Numbers, which is the third narrative book, from 1 to 10 is non-narrative. So those 3 books, Genesis, Exodus, Numbers, which are narrative, There is a gap in between, which is chapter 24 to the end of Exodus, and chapter 1 to 10. They're all about that tabernacle. And they call that, they have a title, Tabernacle Narrative. Why is that important? They said it's a big chunk of the Torah. The tabernacle is an extremely important piece in the Torah. Something very important, okay? The Torah is the holiest part of the Hebrew Bible. In fact, the rest of the Bible books builds on the Torah as foundation. The Bible books of history use the Torah as the standard against which the Israelites and their leaders are judged. Almost all the prophets warned the people of God and sometimes other nations with the laws of God written in the Pentateuch were broken. The books of poetry and wisdom sang of God's commandments and precepts. So the Torah is very, very, very central. In the Genesis, we're going to go to the book of Genesis, you have, I always say this, remember that, 4 events or major events. 3 covenants and 4 patriarchs, 44. In like a plan to play soccer. 4 events, 3 covenants. How many covenants we have all in total?
5%.
6. So out of the 6 covenants in the whole Bible from beginning to end, 3 of them is in Genesis. That's very important. And the patriarchs of the Israelites, the patriarchs of Israel is in Genesis. The 4 events, that major events, are the creation, the fall, the flood, and the nations. These are major events because without the creation we cannot be. Without the fall, things would not have been the same. Without the flood, we would have a complete annihilation of humans. And then there's a saving event in the flood. And the nations is where we explain, the Bible explains to us why we have different languages and different ethnic groups. The patriarchs are Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph, 4. And the covenants, we name them by the person they were made with. There's a kind of covenant with Adam, Noah, and Abraham. By the way, Abraham, if you want to know this, out of all the 6 covenants, Abraham, it seems like the most significant. Even the covenant through Christ, although yes, Jesus' covenant is the biggest one, but it comes as a fulfillment of a promise given to Abraham. That's what the book of Luke, the Gospel of Luke says, as he promised our father, Abraham, our father from the beginning. It's as if they understood the coming of Christ as a fulfillment of a promise made to. So Abraham is very big covenant. So the story of this family is going through this covenant and seems there's a big station in them, which is Abraham. Next. The creation narrative. The narrative of creation covers the first 2 chapters of Genesis, chapter 1 and 2. The first chapter is the overall work of creation. The second chapter is a focus on the creation of humans. Some people would say 2 events. And we're going to talk about this, and actually something a little bit about apologetics here. We're going to talk about it. The account of creation is different from contemporary science or history books because its focus is on answering the questions of origins of life and place of man, the reason for evil, sickness, and death. The explanation for the different nations and languages come later in 10th chapter. God is the central operator in the creation narrative. Some had noticed similarity between the Genesis creation account of the Near East creation narratives. You hear this term a lot when you read biblical criticism. What they're talking about, like the Epic of Gilgamesh and the Babylonian Epic of Enuma Elish. These are the stories of the Babylonians and the Sumerians and later the Assyrians, and they say there is actually an interaction of multiple gods to come up with what we have today. In those epics, there are many gods who are in cosmic conflict, while the creation narrative in Genesis says one God who created all things from nothing and in absolute control. Now, terminology. Chaotic and void. Let's go. Chaos, 2 words in the Hebrew language, tahu, and void, bahu. Tahu, bahu. They're important to study because of the way that chapter is written. Pay attention to this. Chaos or Tahu begins. The Tahu is the beginning, the chaos. And the earth was chaotic and void. What does that in the Strong's Concordance in the dictionary? It says a desolation, like a worthless thing, vain, confused, something that doesn't have a shape. The other one is empty. What's the difference? You go to a junkyard. You look at the junkyard, you see pieces of junk, right? It's useless. So to you, it is actually empty. There's nothing here. There's no chair, no table, nothing. No bed, nothing. So for me, there's nothing there. But actually, it has some things that's very useless, right? Let's go to the next one. To solve, then actually the creation narrative is built on those two words. Listen to me. It's actually built to solve these two words. For the problem of chaos, which is the beginning, the topic, God has to create domains. يعني الأول كلمة إيه؟ قال لك كانت خاربة وخالية. خاربة لما يقول خرابة يعني مش متوضبة، مش متقسمة، مش ما فيهاش نظام، ملهاش شكل. والتانية خالية معناها إيه؟ خالية. دي كلمتين مختلفين في العبري. لاحظوا دي. Pay attention. That the first 3 days is about dividing and making walls, domains. And the second 3 days in the 6 days of creation is filling those domains. Let's look. The first day, God said, let there be light. And he immediately says, and he separated the light day and the darkness he called night. How many rooms we have now? 2, day and night. The second day, God said, let us separate the water above from the water below. And he created what we know now as the sky. So I tell the kids in kindergarten, I said, second, sky, sea. Second, sky, sea. So we have two more domains now, which is sky and sea. Third day, God said, let the land appear. So the third domain is land. So you have 3 domains. To solve the issue of chaos. Day, night, sea, sky, land. How many domains? 5. Now, let's go to day 4. From 4 to 6, he's going to fill these rooms. He built the house now. He's going to have some furniture. On day 4, he said, let the sun shine by the day, and let the moon and the stars shine by night. So he filled 2 domains, which is the day and night from day 1. On the 5th day, he said, let birds fly in the sky and sea creatures, and he added one word here, and I'm going to bring it out, tanim. So he said, then tanim and sea creatures. So birds in the sky, and what is in the sea? Sea creatures. That's 5th day. 6th day, now we're looking at the last domain, which is the earth, the ground, and let the animals come up, the animals of the ground. So you got 3 days and 3 days and 1 day, kind of counterpart of another day, which is light and darkness, sun, moon, and stars. By the way, the words using for sun, moon, and stars does not mean that they were created on that day. They were not created. It doesn't say, let the sun shines through the atmosphere, through what he called the firmament. Let the sun lights the firmament. And I'm going to tell you, there's actually amazing stuff when you look at it from the science point of view. It's very mind-blowing. Actually, this is saying exactly how now the scientists understand the Earth journey. We will see this. Now, this is the 3 days and 3 days. What about the 7th day? They say the 7 days have no counterpart. By itself, has nothing to do with anything else. What's the 7th day? It said, notice something about the 7th day. The Hebrew Study Bible says this. What's a week? What's a month? What's a month? A month, actually, in original language, is a moon. What's a moon? It follows the cycle of the moon. What's a year? It's a solar cycle, right? But what's a week? So apparently, the division of time into months and year follows something in the heavens, but the week does not follow any of that. So they say that that's why the Sabbath is very important. It's a divinely made day. Divinely made day. And not the Jews, actually, this is before the Jews. This is much way older than, this is actually the beginning. People that recorded that they were celebrating the times or dividing time in weeks is Sumerian. They were the ones who start with this, but this is belonging to a different time, a different era. Creation comes to its culmination only in one day that has no counterpart, the Sabbath. The organization of time into 7 days have been so familiar and so widespread that it's easy to forget that unlike the month, which is in the Bible a lunar, and a year, which is in the Bible, never moves too far from its solar base, the biblical week correlates to no astronomical event. The notion that 7 signifies completeness in many ways. For example, the expression that God saw that something, listen to this. If you count the some things in the book of Genesis, the chapter 1, say that, go up a little bit. No, up. Yeah. That God saw that something God created was good or very good occurs 7 times. He said good, good, good 7 times. By the way, he didn't say anything good on the second day when he made the atmosphere, but he did twice in the third. On the 7th, on the 6th. So there's no 7 and there's no second. But on the 3rd and the 6th, he said good and very good twice. Yes?
I just have a question. Genesis 1:3, God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. What was the light in 1:3?
The light.
How was light without sun? What's light
Without
without
sun, moon, and stars.
You know what the Big Bang says? The
I
Big
was gonna
Bang.
say, is it the Big Bang Theory?
Big Bang said that they actually, in the beginning, there was energy and matter together. Maybe that's how they speak, and I don't understand the language. But the matter and energy was good. But we're talking about after that, when the galaxies are formed. Now we're talking about the Earth. This is not talking about the beginning of creation. This is they're talking about the beginning of the planet of Earth.
This
So
was
how they see it,
galaxy.
how they see it is that the Earth and its primitive forms were very much dark. Darkness and hot. It's not cooling off yet. So the beginning of, as if this is seen from the point of view of somebody standing on the Holy Spirit, standing on the earth, looking through, it's dark. It's very dark. And all of a sudden you have light coming through, things are starting to cool off, and there's some kind of light is coming through. Light is light, like the light of the stars and this. Maybe next time we'll do this. I will show you a very interesting thing. I only have this one to show is, what if I get out from here and get out of the atmosphere? What would you see? Dark.
The universe is black.
Absolutely black.
Yeah,
So what we were talking about here is the light that is actually in the atmosphere. Our atmosphere catches light. You see, look at this. You see this piece of plastic or glass does not a source of light. What is lighting it up? The light bulbs behind it. If you take those bulbs and break them, what's inside? A gas, and it has a spark. You see a spark from the two sides. You don't see light. What makes the light is that spark is hitting the sulfur and doing what? Reflecting the rays. So the atmosphere actually catches the light of the sun. You know when we stood on the moon or you stand outside the space, what would the sun look like? But it doesn't light up the space. It does not light up the space. There's nothing to hit that the light of the sun can be lighting. علشان atmosphere. We have particles of gas and maybe all kinds of gases that catches the light and does what as bluish lit up. That's not actually the case. Well, outside the atmosphere there's nothing. It's dark, completely dark. I would love to show you, but next time. The thing they did with Red Bull Red Bull did this, and it caught my attention. Red Bull had a person go up as like an advertisement, get up in a balloon above the atmosphere, and he's gonna jump with a parachute outside, a space jump. So as he goes up, you look at the sky; it's actually black. And he goes down, and as he's going down, he's turning around. He got into this very dizzy spell because that goes down. And as he's coming down, and the cameras are watching him, here he is. That's it. Let's see this. It's interesting. I show it just to show that this is actually the case. There is no light outside the atmosphere. What does it look? The sky outside. Look at the sky. Okay? Don't look at him. Look at the sky.
I want to be the first human outside of America breaking the sound barrier. I almost weighed twice the weight that I normally have.
You see the sky?
How to do a perfect exit, do not over-rotate. If you first start
Nej, det är
over-rotating,
sky, sen så är det sky, men fish sky. Kör man.
used to slow down.
No atmosphere. The space is. Yeah, that's what he said. I'm going home.
يا ابني نط وخلص.
Okay, look at up behind him.
Behind in black.
It is black. Now watch as he comes into the atmosphere and what will happen.
طب ايه السعادة في كده؟
First 25 seconds.
Look at the blackness.
Everything's under control.
And he started to spin.
And after 24 seconds, I hit Mach 1 and I got the speed of sound.
Keep watching
That's a robot.
the sky, please. That's what I would say.
The other half said, because I think anything is going to happen. I was mentally prepared to spin.
Yes, too
I
dark.
was hoping that I'm not going to spin. Now,
هو
if
ده-
you
هو
watch the
اللي
next
بيتكلم
couple
ده؟
seconds,
Yes.
you see at
How
that
is it?
moment, it slowly starts to spin. It's getting
حيا
faster.
يرزق بس.
نكون واحد لما قلب
Well, telling me, listen, Felix, if this happens, you have to do this.
He's not in the atmosphere yet.
Then I was trying to move my arms around a little bit, just maybe it does something, and then it stopped for a second, but now it starts getting the opposite direction.
أدخت.
And that is really crazy. At that moment, it's not about taking records anymore. At that moment, it's all about survival.
He's trying to balance
There's
himself.
only one way for the blood to leave your skull, and that's through all the eyeballs. If that happens, you're gonna die. I had a chi whiz attached to my hand. The chi whiz is a device that it fires a broke chute that pulls you out of the flat spin. It's like the trick that chi whiz, it's less chi, and now the chi whiz senses, oh, less chi, it means he's getting it under control. I turned around and it was stable as well. So when you look at my suit, you know, the
Madness.
See that the atmosphere is coming closer and it's actually
you
lit.
can already see the suit flapping. If you look at the sky.
Now look at the sky. See what's
Ah,
happening?
it's blue now.
It's turning
Yes.
Yeah, like
blue.
White and blue, yes.
Get it? And as he comes down more and more, what happens?
Now this is
More and more light. The Earth to have some kind of atmosphere that actually catches the light. This is what we're talking about. It's not that creation of a sun and moon on that day. After day three, why the sun and moon comes on day 4? Think about it. Day 3 is when the ground appears from under the water, and then there's actually plants.
plants with no sun.
But there's light. What happens? They talk about stromatolite. That's the type of plants that actually created the
هو
oxygen.
seeds من غير seeds in the vibration.
The stromatolite is a primitive plants like algae, but there's huge number of them for billions of years. What they do, they pump trillions of oxygen into the atmosphere. So what happens? You create an atmosphere. Once you have plants creating oxygen with the carbon dioxide and with nitrogen, what do you have with gravity? You have air. And that's how day 4 becomes the day for light, for the sun and moon to actually shine. So there is light, but there is not actually a source of light. On the day 3, after day 3, day 4, you got that clear. There is actually day sunlight and moonlight. Yes.
Mean ability to receive light but no light?
There is light.
There's ability to receive light but no light.
There is no sun and moon, but there was light.
The light of whatever the cosmic light, wherever because at the beginning, at the Big Bang, there was what? There's a lot of clouds and
Coming
the
from
cosmic
fire?
cosmic clouds, the bodies of the stellar body, the universe itself.
No, the universe is real.
مش في
هتسوديها ليه ان هي انجلز؟
لا the space, but the beginning of matter. When the matter started, there was what? A big bang, a big explosion, and then you have stars everywhere. What's the star look like? Like the sun. Cosmic, when we say that, but the earth in its journey had that light coming through. But then after the fourth day, it becomes more clear. It is sun, moon, and stars, what we know today.
So you're saying the stars were created before day 4, but they were
Before
seen
day
on
1.
Day 4?
So in the beginning it says, in the beginning God created heaven and earth. That's different than, and the earth was.
Right, so when he created heaven, there were stars
Yes.
from the very beginning. Because I thought what I understood in it scientifically, it was proven that light is different than sunlight. There was light before sun was created, but you're saying
It's cosmic light. Cosmic light is like every star and everything, the light as we know as totality of energy. Totality of energy and mass
But
together.
you're saying the only source of it are the stars, which are
For the earth.
For the earth.
For the day 4, for the earth now, it was very specific. Now, we're going to have the light of the sun. As you know that we're talking about, they calculate the earth age as 4.5 billion years. So there's a journey. Billion years, you know what billion is. So we're talking about 100 years, that's all what we know. We live in this range. We're talking about 1,000 years, which is 1,000. We're talking about 100,000 years. That's the age of humans as we know now. And then we have a million years. And then you have a million, 1,000 million times 4.5. So you're talking about a journey that's very, very, very long.
So the Bible is talking from the view of someone standing on earth and seeing things.
The Holy
But
Spirit,
these stars
yes.
and sun were created
Yes.
before.
Yes.
I see.
Before the earth is actually now the theory, I don't know how close it is, that the earth is actually separated from the sun. The earth is separated from the sun and the moon separated from the earth. And they were hot and like the sun. And that's why we have a core of the earth that's still, but the outside crust is cool. And then you have water. No one actually, let me just say this. All scientists, and this is, I looked over tons of information. All scientists agree that the earth at the beginning was a water world. It was completely covered with water. Everybody agrees. And they have no clue how the water came to the earth. Nobody knows. So when the Bible says to us, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the deep, the water. How? And I always ask as an atheist and say to them, how the Bible, who should be debunked 1,000 years ago, is telling us what you just discovered this century, that the earth was covered with water. And then I got this answer from a German woman. She said, of course, German has a big nasty attitude, I don't know why. But they feel like they know everything. I'm done. So they say, she said, oh yeah, when people go on the mountains and find, starfish and stuff. But wait a second, I'm not talking about that. She's talking about the flood. Because when the water covered the earth completely, before the flood, was there any creatures? Was there any plants? Was there any starfish? No. We're talking about the time when there was no life on earth. Scientists now know from two sources. The first sources, they call it the zircon crystals. Zircon is a crystal that has a tendency to trap water. When they took the zircon crystal and broke them and analyzed the water inside, they understood this water is 4.5 million years. And the other one, they call it in the most ancient places. There is a place in Africa. Before the whole earth was actually one place. Broke, came back together, and broke again. And in the first time that the earth came out from in a place, they found there's a place in Africa, and that place they can dig up what would be called pillow lava. Pillow lava is like this. The stones are like this, like a pillow. And say, what does the stone? This is very ancient stones. This is billions of years. Why is it like that? All the stones we know on Earth, that's billions of years, are pillow lava. Why? Because this is broken from a lava shaft underwater. As it comes in the very deep pressure, under the pressure, what's the smallest shape it can take? Because of the pressure of the water, it takes the shape of a pillow, of a circle. It's all the old stones. We know all the ancient stones on Earth are pillow lava, meaning that the Earth first, when it came, actually it was water covered. They know that for sure. Then I ask a question, so how does the Bible know that? How would the Bible, as just an ancient book, know that the beginning of Earth? Now we know because we have technology. But how did the writers of the Bible, if they are making up a book, why would anybody write that? Do you understand me? Like, where do you get this? Stand on any place on Earth, you're gonna find land. Why would anybody write that the whole globe was covered? Here's pillow lava. You see them? This is a very impressive point that if you want to talk to us, you said, why would the scientists say that the earth was covered with water when nobody else knew? At the time of writing of the Bible, we're talking about 4,000 years ago. Beginning of it was 3,500 years ago. How would anybody know this? So that's where I'm going to stop. I'm just going to stop here. There's more to know about the creation, because if you want to know about some very impressive stuff, National Geographic has, and we'll talk about this also next time, National Geographic has this journey of Earth. They divide it into those paleontology, that's the study of the ancient life on Earth, and they divide it into stages. They have different stages names. We always end with C. And then in there they have extinction events. And when you count the extinction events, there are 5. 5 extinction events. And this is it, yes. We'll talk about it next time. The stars says main extinction, that things died, things annihilated. Okay? We'll talk about it next time. Just don't wanna get you excited. Yeah, Father. We just pray that I would just say thank you, our Father. Lord, we give us today our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, and we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation. And the love of God the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. I really thank you.